On the agenda tonight, we're going back to 1990. We're going to be taking a look at Prince, and he's going to be performing Bambi. Hello, Phil here from Wings of Pegasus, and welcome to another analysis video. If you enjoy this video, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe. So this performance is just under 3.5 minutes in length, so I think what we're going to do is watch it all the way through, and then we'll jump into the analysis after, maybe even get the guitar out and see how we get on. But let's see how Prince gets on. And there we have it. Just on YouTube it cuts out that quickly, unfortunately, so we don't get to hear the crowd going wild, we just get to hear the start of it. But first of all, what a huge sound we've got going on here. The drums sound great, but the guitar, I mean, we've got a really wet sound here, so that means that we've got distortion, reverb, delay, wah-wah going on in sections as well. I want to address, I mean, Prince as a guitarist, as a live performer, and just the way that he played his guitar live. But obviously there's loads of songs and jams that you can hear nowadays that I don't think were readily available back in the day, and I'm talking about When I was picking up the guitar and I was about 11 years of age, I mean, I was still relying on vinyls, and tapes were the in thing, and they were relatively new when I was young. So having a Walkman, being able to walk around listening to a tape, was like really advanced. So it meant that you didn't get any imagery. For a start, like YouTube, you can actually see performances now, and I know that there's a lot of visual effects applied to this particular video, but fortunately it doesn't detract too much from what's going on. But I mean, just listening to something you very much just heard maybe one song or two songs. I didn't hear anything from Prince really, and the reason that I think why that is was this comparison between Prince and Michael Jackson, and they were put in this bracket, and it's something that I've mentioned on, I think, another Prince analysis video that I did, where it was very much seen, I'm talking about the UK because that's where I am, when I was growing up, it was very much a pop thing, or Prince was seen as a pop artist. But I think this is the problem with genres and classifying artists, because Prince, like now that I'm older and hopefully a bit wiser, it's clear that Prince was too much of an artist to be generalized or put into a pigeonhole genre-wise. So just throwing him into this pop bracket with Michael Jackson, who, by the way, was a totally different artist. Michael Jackson didn't play the guitar. He couldn't do this live. So if I had access to this kind of thing, Prince would have undoubtedly been a guitarist that I would have got into quite heavily because of his approach. It's just a sound that I love, and the way that he plays live here, it's great because it's throwing caution to the wind, but with great technical ability and having the accuracy to pull off what he wants to do live, but still making it sound wild, very much in that Jimi Hendrix approach, something that he used to do live. You can see at the beginning of this performance, Prince has this feedback, uncontrollable feedback, and then cuts straight into the riff. There's so many similarities between Prince and guitarists that I really enjoyed listening to when I was growing up, learning to play. So for me now to see this, I kind of have to ask myself, why didn't we get exposed to this back in the day? Why didn't Prince get the kind of exposure that the other great blues guitarists, for example, got here in the UK? When I said about Prince being too much of an artist, being able to do too many things, it probably posed a problem to the people that were trying to promote him here in the UK. They might have thought that if they went for him more as a pop artist, then it's more mainstream, maybe they'll make more money from it. But even if you take out the multi-instrumental ability, but the guitar playing ability, songwriting, and just getting into a studio and being able to cut an album by yourself, playing all of the instruments, cut out all of that, just vocally, you can say that Prince was unique just in that sense, because when we're looking at this performance, we've got notes that no guys pretty much would be able to sing, or at least very few guys would be able to sing this the same way that Prince does, because he's starting in and around kind of A-sharp 4, that kind of place, and for guys that's way up there in the male tenor range. I mean, the male tenor range is described as ending at A4, and it can go above that, and it is referred to as being a male tenor high C, for example, the C5, but then getting higher than that, the countertenor range, this is something that Prince regularly went into. But then when you start adding everything else together, you think, well, how do you classify this sound? Do you classify him as a blues guitarist? Is it, classic rock? Is it pop? Is it melodic hard rock? When you're talking about his guitar tone and the amount of distortion he's got on there, his attitude in the playing, you could definitely make an argument for that he spans so many genres. And maybe this is a reason as to why, again, I'm just speculating here, but as to why his guitar playing and his live performances like this weren't just thrust into the limelight here in the UK. So we have the guitar out, we're going to be jumping into this, and it's not going to be an instructional video, but hopefully you can see the fretboard. Last video, it was hidden behind the mic a little bit, but mic has been moved. So I just want to show you the approach that Prince has to this and how if you try and play this too precisely, it's just not going to work because there is so much caution thrown to the wind in this performance. But just the way that Prince played, getting that energy into it. Let's jump into it. So, I mean, even in this opening section, you can see how much is going on with Prince's right hand with his rhythm. He's kind of always going with that. So he's got this... that kind of thing. The... might be a wider... a little bit of a wider vibrato in there. And... a little bit of octave work there, but it's this approach of just playing it wildly and letting your hands go a little bit, and then if you're catching strings accidentally or whatever happens, and you will be able to hear that in this performance, that yeah, Prince is hitting other strings, but you're not really aware of it because that's all part of the expression of his playing. So when we now get into this next riff, we've got this really cool unison bend that comes in, and the thing to point out about this is how high in the mix the keys are, because the keys are playing exactly the same riff. So it means that once we've had this unison bend, and then he goes down, and the keys are now holding this note, which now frees up Prince to, you know, if he wants to, or you know, get into any other lead lines that he wants to do, which he does, the keys free him up. I also love how high in the mix the keys are, because it really gives it that kind of 80s sound that I'm really into as well, as you can probably tell from my hair. And this is why I think, yeah, going to see this live, but just getting this kind of sound is right up my street, and the playing as well. Really cool riff, unison bend, breaking off into bits of lead work, but let's continue. And just getting into the verse, again, this appreciation of dynamics, the way that we've just been going 100 miles an hour, you know, foot to the floor for the intro, for the riff, but then we're now into the verse. So we've got this, maybe taking a little bit off his volume, you know, and it's more understated. It's almost like it might be the keys in the background, maybe the bass that's having the hint towards the, you know, like that. It's not kind of that straightforward. There's that kind of offbeat. Kind of like that. So it still keeps that bounce in there, that energy, rather than, I mean, if it was going straight like I just played with the, you'd still have the little jump down, but it might take a little bit too much of the energy out of it. But it's all about dynamics, rolling off that volume, getting into palm muting on the right hand. Kind of like that, just making it really subtle. Actually, let me just take down the backing so that we can hear Prince's vocal isolated. See there, we're, as I said earlier, that kind of A sharp, B flat. And when I said about the C5, this is a C sharp, D flat, 5. So it means that we are now above that male tenor high C. When I said about guys not being able to sing this, I mean, just there is your proof in the verse. And let's get back into it. Now at this point, I mean, that's really cool that when he's actually singing at the same time, the again, just matching that up melodically sounds really cool. But now you can hear how much the keys are adding to the sound, because if you listen out for the riff, you know, you hear that unison bend that we have, but that's now just being played on keys. So it's filling in all of this sound, which just allows Prince to go off into a little bit more lead work. And I say this about a lot of other performances, that it's great to have keys in the band as a guitarist, because it's going to fill in so much frequency under your lead work. But let's get back into it. Then we also throw in playing and singing at the same time, but you kind of take that for granted when you're watching Prince play, because he's so accomplished. You just assume that everyone can do it and that it's easy, because he makes it look really easy, but it's not. Anyway. So just before we get into the main solo, we then get really melodic with this line, and it's quite straight. Kind of like that, maybe even a little hammer on there. A slide. Kind of like that, these tiny details, and then we've got a little bit of wah-wah action. Kind of like that. It's not quite that exaggerated. It's kind of more like that, a bit more subtle. So even here, I mean, it's great to just get into a melodic line that is really hooky and just is always giving you something interesting. Because this first one, that's the question, and that's our response to that question. So it's cool because it's just going to put the full stop there and just wrap everything up. So let's get into the solo. And just this first bend that we have, because, you know, we're going into this, and he's actually just holding on to that and then doing that kind of thing, catching the other string, and then going back to just hitting that one string by itself. And by the way, that's just catching the G underneath your finger at the same time. I'm just going to take it back because I think we have a bit of trill action. A little bit of vibrato right at the end there as well. We little wobble in there, and then that's where that trill comes in. He just holds on that last note for a little bit longer. And we have this little rundown, and yeah, a bit of a bend there on that low. You know, again, on that low E string, it's throwing caution to the wind, but you want to go 3 semitones up. That's going to be your destination that you want to try and get to with that bend. But again, he's throwing it in really quickly, and it's just playing with the feel that he's got. Is more about the expression than really trying to, you know, get everything exact. And same thing there. But we had this... Oh, no, actually... He's actually just doing it on that G and the B, the unison bend there. But pedaling between them. Kind of like that. And again, you don't want to be approaching it like going... and being really exact with it. You kind of want to... you know, just be a little bit wild. Same technique there. Now, just employing a little bit of this wah-wah. So we've got this... and it might be a little bit of that. So with that G string to the B string, down, down, up. So you're getting a double pick on that B. Kind of like that. You know, again, there's a lot of technique just... dotted in here that you'll probably miss out on unless you really kind of dive into it and see what's going on, because it just seems so easy but so natural. But let's get back into it. Okay, so we've got this run up that we had probably that kind of thing. Again, alternate picking going on there. Might end with a bend there rather than straight note. Yeah, let me just take that back to hear the run. Oh, he goes down again, so... kind of like that to get to that last bend. Again, lots of notes to try and work out very quickly, but also that muscle memory before getting to the end. Cool little run up. Again, it seems like Prince does like to go to that, you know, that technique of doing the unison bends, applying a little bit of wah-wah to it as well. And we had, again, going a little bit major there. Bend. I don't know what he does. Goes major. I don't think... yeah, that little rundown. And then just a little semitone run up at the end. But even with that unison bend technique, where normally you'd have that... but then if you're doing the... and doing the wah-wah as well, it makes it sound like there's more going on. But on the right hand, that's all you're doing, just catching those two strings. And, you know, it sounds like there's loads going on. I mean, the good thing is now on YouTube and with the internet, we can check out performances like this. Performances that you've never seen before. It's literally taken about 30 years to get to the point of seeing some of these performances, but, you know, better late than never. it's great to have experienced this and just seen what a great live performer Prince was in every single sense of the word. But anyway, thank you guys for requesting this video for me to take a look at. As always, let me know what you guys think. If you did enjoy this video, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe. Keep those suggestions and requests coming in the comment section below, and I'll see you guys at the next one. Rock!